Have you been planning to sell your home in the Denver suburbs this spring? You know, there's something most sellers don't realize. The most important part of the sale isn't the closing. I know, it's the first 2 weeks your home is on the market. Those first 14 days shape how buyers see your property, how strongly they negotiate, and in many cases, how smoothly the entire sale unfolds. Miss that window and the conversation with buyers can shift quickly. And once that happens, it's really hard to regain that momentum. So today, I'm going to walk you through why the first 14 days on the market matter so much here in the Denver area and how sellers can position themselves before the listing ever goes live, especially if you're navigating this move on your own. You know, in the last couple of videos, we've talked about preparing your home, decluttering, depersonalizing, and cleaning, and then protecting your leverage before you list. Today, we're talking about timing, because even when a home is beautifully prepared and strategically priced, how the market first reacts to your listing matters more than most sellers realize. And it all comes down to those first 2 weeks. You know, when a home first hits the market, something interesting happens behind the scenes. That's when your listing gets the most attention it will ever receive. You know, buyers who've been watching the market suddenly see something new. Agents send alerts to their clients. Online platforms push your listing to the top of the search results. In other words, the spotlight is on your home. Serious buyers schedule showings quickly because they don't want to miss out. But here's a key part that most sellers don't realize. Those buyers aren't just looking, they're evaluating. They're asking questions like, is this priced correctly? How does this home compare to the other homes we've seen? Should we move quickly or should we have a wait and see attitude? And the answers they come up with in those first few days start to shape how the rest of your sale unfolds. Let me give you a quick example of what I mean. A colleague of mine recently had a listing where the seller really wanted to try it just a little higher than the market suggested. And the launch actually looked great on the surface. They had a strong first weekend. The open house was well attended. Lots of people came through. But the feedback was almost identical from everyone. Nice home, but it's priced too high. And here's what tends to happen next. Those buyers don't usually come back the following week and say, well, let's take another look. Most of them simply keep shopping. And if they see another home that feels more aligned with the market, that's the one they pursue. That's something we're seeing quite a bit of with Denver buyers right now. They're interested, but they're careful. They're looking closely at price, condition, and value, and comparing it to the other homes that they're seeing. So those first reactions during the launch week really matter, because the feedback the buyers give in those early days starts shaping how the rest of the sale unfolds. And that leads to a second thing sellers need to understand about those first 14 days. When the market reacts slowly, the conversation around the home starts to change. In the beginning, buyers are curious, and they're excited to see something new. But if the home sits through that first week and then that second week, buyers start asking different questions. Not, do we like the house? But why hasn't this home sold yet? Or the dreaded, how long has it been on the market? Because those questions lead to a shift for the buyers of, is the seller going to reduce the price? Will the seller offer concessions? How motivated is the seller really? And suddenly the seller isn't in the same position they were in during that launch window. Now, I want to be clear about something. A home sitting on the market for 2 weeks doesn't mean something's wrong with it. But it does mean the strategy may need to shift, because once a listing loses that early momentum, the market starts treating it differently. Yeah, buyers feel less urgency. Agents start comparing it more closely to other homes. And that's when a home seller's leverage can quietly begin to slip away. So if those first 2 weeks carry that much weight, the real question becomes this: what can a seller do before the home ever hits the market to protect that window? Because once the listing's live, you're reacting to the market. The real strategy happens before the for sale sign ever goes in the yard. The sellers who tend to have the smoothest launches here in the Denver suburbs usually do 3 things before they list. First, they understand the condition of their home. Not perfectly, but clearly. They know the age of the roof, the furnace, the water heater. They've thought about what might show up at an inspection so that nothing feels like a surprise later. Secondly, they think about positioning, not just the price, but how their home will compare to the other homes buyers will be looking at that same weekend. Because buyers don't evaluate homes in isolation. They're looking at 3, 4, sometimes 6 homes in the same price range. So the question becomes, how will this one stand out? And third, they plan their launch, not just list it and see what happens, but thinking through things like, when will the listing go live? When will the showings start? Whether an open house makes sense that first weekend, and how feedback from those first showings will be evaluated. Those decisions help shape the energy around a listing, and that energy is often what drives those early offers. So here's a takeaway for you. When people ask me how long it takes to sell a home in Denver, the real answer is a lot of that gets decided in the very beginning. Those first few days on the market are when buyers are paying the most attention. Agents are scheduling showings, and the market is forming its first impression of your house. When the launch is well positioned, things tend to move forward smoothly. When it isn't, sellers often spend the next several weeks trying to rebuild that momentum. And that's why so much of the strategy actually happens before the listing ever goes live. Hey, if we haven't met yet, my name's Peggy Durstoff, and I'm a realtor with Live Denver Suburbs powered by HomeSmart. And I specialize in helping women over 50 make smart smart real estate decisions without pressure and without regret, especially when they're navigating the process on their own or stepping into a new chapter. You know, if you've been thinking about selling this year and you want to talk through how timing and pricing and preparation might look for your specific home here in the Denver metro area, you'll find my contact information down below. Every home is different, and those early decisions are often what shape the entire experience. And if you missed the video where we talk about preparing your home before you ever list, using what I call the 4Ds to get a home ready for the market, I'll link it here so you can take a look, because preparation and timing really do go hand in hand. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.